Trash should stay with trash. That's what my father declared into the microphone. His voice loud and smug, as he waved the old yellowed bank passbook my grandfather had slipped into my hand just moments earlier. He didn't stop at humiliating me with words. He took the book and tossed it straight into a silver bucket filled with melting ice and champagne. The room exploded with laughter. Everyone thought it was hilarious. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Instead, I shoved my hand into that freezing slurry, soaking my wedding dress as I fished out the ruined pages. Champagne dripped down my arm as I pulled the book free. Then I turned around and walked out, never once looking back. Before I tell you what was hidden inside those soggy, destroyed pages, and how I used it to bring down my father's fake empire, I want to know something. Tell me in the comments, what's the cruelest thing a family member has ever done to you at a celebration? I'm reading every single story. 3 days later, I stepped into the First National Bank in downtown Boston. The building was quiet and polished, all marble floors and murmured voices, nothing like the chaos and cruelty I'd left behind in Newport. I carried the passbook sealed inside a plastic Ziploc bag. The pages were warped, stained with champagne, and wrinkled beyond repair. Honestly, it looked exactly like the trash my father had called it. My name is Emily. I'm 29 years old, and I've spent most of my life trying not to be seen. As a trauma nurse, that skill comes naturally. I know how to disappear into the background while doctors shout orders and patients bleed. I know how to stay calm. I know how to keep secrets. But standing there in my second-hand coat, waiting for a young teller to finish typing, I felt completely exposed. I need to check the balance on this, I said, sliding the bag across the glossy counter. It was a gift. The teller couldn't have been more than 20. She picked up the bag using just 2 fingers, her nose tightening like she expected it to smell bad. She entered the account number, probably assuming it would come back invalid or empty. Then she froze. Her hands stopped moving. She leaned closer to the screen. Her eyes widened, and all the color drained from her face. "Ma'am," she whispered, her voice shaking, "please wait here. Do not leave." She didn't hit a silent alarm, but it felt like she had. Within seconds, the branch manager appeared, followed by a man in a perfectly tailored suit, the regional director. They moved fast straight toward me. They didn't glance at my coat or my scuffed shoes. They looked at me like someone important who had been missing for a very long time. "Miss Carter," the director said gently as he guided me toward a heavy steel door in the back, "we've been waiting for this account to be claimed for decades." They led me into a private viewing room that smelled like dust, old paper, and time itself. While they went to retrieve the files, I sat back in a leather chair and closed my eyes. And just like that, I wasn't in a bank anymore. I was 12 years old again, kneeling on the hardwood floor of my father's study. Thomas sat back in his armchair, swirling a glass of scotch, watching me like I was part of the furniture. He had spilled the drink on purpose. I knew it. But the rules in our house were simple. Girls clean, boys conquer. My brother Logan lounged on the couch, laughing at a video game, his feet resting on the table I'd just finished polishing. "You missed a spot, Emily," Thomas said quietly. He never raised his voice. Yelling was for private moments. Cruelty, for him, deserved an audience. He liked watching the light leave my eyes. It was his personal theater. When Grandpa Henry tried to help me stand, Thomas snapped, his voice sharp as a lash. "Touch that rag, old man, and I'll have you in a state home before you can pack your pills." That day, I scrubbed until my knuckles cracked and bled. I scrubbed because I believed my worth only existed in how much pain I could tolerate. The loud clang of the vault door snapped me back to the present. I opened my eyes. I wasn't that scared little girl anymore. I was the woman holding the match. The director placed a thick folder on the table and opened it carefully. "Your grandfather didn't just open a savings account," he said. "In 1982, he established a Totten Trust." He explained that Grandpa Henry had been an early investor in Apple and Microsoft, reinvesting every dividend and never touching the account for 40 years. Then he turned the document toward me. The number stared back at me in bold black ink. $12,400,000. $12,400,000. I thought about the champagne bucket. I thought about Thomas laughing into the microphone, calling this fortune trash. He had held $12 million in his hands and thrown it away without ever opening the cover. "Is anyone else listed on the account?" I asked, my voice steady, professional, clinical. "No," the director replied. "It's entirely yours." I ran my fingers over the dried, ruined passbook. This wasn't just money. It was leverage. It was power. And for the first time in my life, I knew exactly where to point it. When I got home, my husband Ethan didn't even look up. He was hunched over his laptop at the kitchen island, surrounded by stacks of printed spreadsheets. The air in our small apartment buzzed with tension, like something was about to snap. Ethan isn't just a data analyst. He's a forensic architect of secrets. He finds cracks no one else notices. "It's not an empire, Emily," he said, finally turning the screen toward me. His voice was flat, stripped of emotion. "It's a Ponzi scheme propped up by bridge loans and pure ego." I stared at the monitor. I expected to see wealth, millions, power, the success Thomas bragged about at every gala and family dinner. Instead, everything was red. "He's broke," Ethan continued, tapping one file. "The Newport mansion entered foreclosure 3 weeks ago. The family trust he claims to manage is empty. He's been cycling the same 50 grand through 6 shell accounts just to fake liquidity." Ethan paused, then added, "And here's the worst part. The IRS is auditing him. He got a notice of deficiency last month." I looked at the numbers again. The man who had dumped my grandfather's legacy into a champagne bucket wasn't powerful at all. He was drowning, desperately trying to stay afloat. He didn't just want money. He needed it to stay out of federal prison. My phone rang. It was Thomas. I put it on speaker. Ethan stopped typing. "Emily." My father's voice filled the kitchen. There was no apology, no shame. Just the same arrogant confidence of a man who still thought he owned everything, including me. "I've been thinking about that little shack your grandfather left you," he said. "The cottage. What about it?" I asked. My hand pressed against the table to steady itself, but my voice stayed cold. "I'm going to do you a favor," he said. "I've already talked to my real estate attorney. We can liquidate it quickly." "I'll take care of the sale," he said smoothly. "I'll get you fair market value and roll the proceeds into the family business so you actually earn something from it. You're a nurse, sweetheart. You don't know anything about property taxes, upkeep, or management. I'm trying to spare you the headache." He wanted that cottage. It was the only real thing Grandpa Henry had ever left me besides the passbook. On paper, it was worth maybe $300,000. Nothing to a supposed billionaire, but a lifeline to a man drowning in fraud and debt. "I'm not selling it, Dad," I said. The line went dead quiet. Then his mask cracked. "You listen to me," he growled, his voice dropping low and dangerous. "That old man wasn't mentally competent when he signed that deed. I have witnesses lined up who will swear you manipulated a senile geriatric into handing over family assets. If you don't sign the transfer paperwork by Friday, I'll sue you for elder abuse. I'll drag you through probate court until you're completely broke. Do you understand me?" I understood exactly what was happening. He wasn't trying to protect me. He was scavenging for cash. Any asset he could grab, flip, and throw into the black hole of his debt. "I understand," I said evenly. "Good," he replied. "I'll have the papers sent over." The call ended. I looked at Ethan. He wasn't afraid. He was smiling, a sharp, knowing smile that mirrored the calm settling in my chest. Thomas thought he was terrorizing a helpless daughter. What he didn't realize was that he'd just handed us the blueprint for his own collapse. Desperate men always slip. I waited a full 24 hours before calling him back. Silence has weight. It stretches fear. It lets desperation ferment. Ethan and I didn't spend that day panicking. We spent it preparing. We didn't hire a lawyer to block the sale of the cottage. We hired a graphic designer to create a flawless set of investment documents. When I finally called Thomas, I gave the performance of my life. I didn't become the woman who had stared down a bank vault. I became the 12-year-old girl terrified of spilling scotch. "Dad," I whispered when he answered. I let my voice shake. "I'm sorry I hung up earlier. I didn't know what to say." "You should be sorry," he snapped. But the sharp edge was gone. He was listening now. "It's not just the cottage," I said, carefully dialing my tone to pure, helpless panic. "I went to the bank. The passbook, it wasn't empty." The line went completely silent. I could almost hear him calculating. "How much?" he asked. The greed seeped through the phone. "12 million, I said, choking on the words. $12 million. "But Dad, I don't know what to do." The bank manager started talking about capital gains taxes and federal audits. "And I think I'm in trouble. If the IRS finds out, they'll take half of it. I don't know how to hide it." It was perfect bait. I gave him exactly what he already believed about me, that I was weak, clueless, and incapable of managing power. And I gave him exactly what he needed, a massive flood of liquidity to bury his crimes. "Listen to me very carefully, Emily," he said. His voice shifted instantly from predator to savior. Made my skin crawl. "Do not sign anything with the bank. Do not speak to any lawyers. You bring the paperwork to me. I'll shelter it under the family trust and classify it as a pre-existing asset. It's complicated, but I can make the tax liability disappear. I'm doing this for you, sweetheart. To protect you. Protect me." He wanted to swallow my inheritance whole and use it to plug the holes in his sinking ship. Can we do it tonight?" I asked softly. "No," he said too fast. He needed time to prepare his fake paperwork. "I've got the Man of the Year Gala Saturday in Boston. It's perfect. Bring the documents there. We'll sign everything in the VIP suite before the speeches. I'll announce the expansion of the family fund. It'll all look legitimate." He wanted an audience. He wanted the applause. He wanted to claim a $12 million windfall as proof of his brilliance. "Okay," I said. "Thank you, Dad. Thank you for fixing this." "That's what fathers are for," he replied. Hung up. I looked at Ethan, and the fear drained from my face instantly. "He took it," I said. Ethan nodded. He was already printing the real documents we planned to use. They looked exactly like standard transfer forms. Same layout, same headers, same language. But buried in the fine print wasn't a transfer of funds. It was an affidavit of sole liability. Thomas thought he was pulling in a clueless daughter. He didn't realize he'd just invited his executioner to his own celebration. The Man of the Year charity gala was held in the grand ballroom of the Fairmont Copley Plaza. Crystal chandeliers spilled light over Boston's elite. The room was thick with old money, political power, and, when it came to my father, desperate ambition. I arrived at 7:55 p.m. I wasn't wearing the safe, beige clothes Thomas preferred. I wore a structured red dress that cost more than my car. I walked straight through the crowd, not around it. I spotted Logan at the bar, laughing too loudly, already several drinks in. He didn't notice me. He was too busy playing prince to a kingdom that didn't exist. Thomas stood near the front, flanked by two senators. He looked radiant, the glow of a man convinced he'd just pulled off the theft of a lifetime. When he saw me, his smile stayed fixed, but his eyes sharpened. He excused himself and met me near the steps of the stage. "You're late," he hissed through clenched teeth, still smiling for the cameras. "Do you have it?" "I do," I said, holding out a blue leather presentation folder. He snatched it from my hands. His greed radiated off him like heat. "Is everything there?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "The transfer authorizations. The power of attorney, just like you asked, places the entire $12 million under the control of the family trust. You only need to sign as sole trustee to accept the assets." He opened the folder. He didn't read the clauses. He didn't check the definitions. He only looked for the signature line. A smarter man might have wondered why the document was titled Affidavit of Historical Management and Sole Liability. A smarter man might have paused to question why the dates on those documents stretched back 20 years, quietly tying him to every shell company listed in the appendix. But Thomas was never smart. He was arrogant. He believed so completely in his own dominance that the idea of me being a threat never even crossed his mind. He pulled a Mont Blanc pen from his jacket, smooth and confident. "You did the right thing, Emily," he said as he signed with a dramatic flourish. When he finished, he shoved the folder back into my hands, already bored, already turning toward the podium. "Go sit in the back," he said. "I've got an announcement to make." He climbed the steps to the stage like a conquering hero. The room fell quiet. A spotlight locked onto him. I didn't go to the back. I stepped to the side, snapped a photo of the sign page, and hit send. 3 miles away, Ethan received it, attached it to the whistleblower complaint we'd finalized days earlier, and uploaded everything to the Department of Justice's secure portal. Moments later, Thomas leaned into the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said proudly, "tonight we launch a historic expansion of the Carter Family Foundation, a $12 million investment in the future of this city." He was confessing in real time. 500 witnesses. He publicly claimed ownership of money I had just legally tied to 2 decades of tax fraud. He thought he was unveiling his legacy. In reality, he was reading himself his Miranda rights. My phone vibrated. RS confirmation received. Code 99 Alpha. It was done. Thomas was still smiling when the massive LED screen behind him flickered. The foundation logo disappeared, replaced by the seal of the Department of Justice, stamped in red. Federal asset seizure in progress. Case 8842. The applause collapsed into stunned silence. Thomas didn't panic at first. He looked confused. His mind simply rejected a reality that didn't match the script he'd written for himself. That was always his fatal flaw, not ignorance but entitlement. He never believed someone he dismissed as insignificant could build a trap large enough to hold him. The ballroom doors burst open. 6 IRS criminal investigation agents moved swiftly down the aisle. "Thomas Carter," the lead agent said. "Step away from the podium." Thomas clutched the microphone. "Do you know who I am?" "We do," the agent replied calmly. "You're the sole trustee who signed an affidavit accepting responsibility for 20 years of unreported offshore accounts." Thomas spun toward me. "She tricked me, my own daughter." "Save it for the grand jury," the agent said. The handcuffs snapped shut. Cameras flashed as he was escorted away, stripped of power, reduced to a man in a rented tuxedo. I thought it was over. It wasn't. The VIP suite door slammed shut behind us. The lock clicked. Logan stood there, red-faced and sweating, panic leaking out of him. "You ruined everything," he hissed. "It was already ruined," I said. "The money never existed." He grabbed a serrated steak knife. This wasn't strategy anymore. This was raw instinct, the moment when the illusion of family shatters and desperation bares its teeth. Ethan stepped in front of me. "Open the door, Logan." Logan lunged. Ethan caught his wrist, twisted, and there was a sharp crack. The knife skidded across the marble floor. When the agents forced the door open, my brother was sobbing, not from pain but from irrelevance. That was 3 weeks ago. This morning, Newport smells like salt air and fresh coffee. I'm sitting on the porch of my cottage, mine. I fixed the roof, tore out the ivy, and finally made it a home. Thomas was denied bail. His assets are frozen. His empire dissolved. Logan took a plea deal. No inheritance is waiting for him, just work. I burned the affidavit on the porch. I don't need it anymore. The IRS and DOJ already have everything that matters. That paper was just fear I carried for too long. Ethan sits beside me. "The trust transfer is complete," he says. "It's all yours. What do you want to do with it?" I look out at the ocean. $12 million. "Nothing," I say. Let it grow. I'm still a nurse. Still Emily. The money isn't power, it's protection. Family isn't blood. It's who stands with you when the vault finally opens.